Welcome to Women at Halftime podcast, but not just for women, for you men too. If you're at mid-career or the halftime of life, our inspirational topics are not only fun, but also meant to help you maximize and write your next chapter. Right here with me, Deborah Johnson. Well, I'm so excited today because I have a special guest for a bonus episode that we have. And I have with me Taylor Johnson. Now, she has the same last name as we do already, but she is also marrying one of our sons. And the whole theme of today is when to know it's over as a professional athlete. Mm-hmm. And Taylor has been a professional athlete, and I thought it would be great because she's younger. I've interviewed Greg, and he's at another end.
Younger than Greg.
Yes, you are. So we're going to go through, some of our little questions in your background, and you have a lot to say on this subject because it's very fresh for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So yes. So I just want to remind everyone, I will link to an article with a few of the show notes, but you'll get this on video and audio because it's a bonus episode. So thank you for being with me today. And it's fun because you're here.
I'm here. I'm actually from Michigan, so it's a little bit hotter over here than it is in Michigan right now.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. We're recording this at the Christmas holidays. I don't know how many feet of snow is in Michigan right now.
A lot.
So she's got her Santa Monica sweatshirt on. First time to Santa Monica.
Time to Santa Monica. We went to a restaurant, The Meat, which was very good, very elegant. It was something Michigan doesn't have a lot of, so it was very nice.
They have a lot of meat, but
a lot of meat, yes.
But they don't have restaurants like that, especially by the ocean.
Right.
Well, let's talk. We're basically going to have a conversation, but I am going to guide this because I want to really give some clues and how you deal emotionally and mentally. I talk a lot about mindset. Actually, I have a whole webinar right now on mindsets for the New Year's, but we're going to talk about mindset today and give us a little bit of your background.
So a little bit about my background. I'm from Michigan. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I was all conference, district, regional in basketball, all state in basketball, and same in softball, and then in volleyball. I got full rides to play for basketball, softball, and volleyball in high school, but I initially chose basketball. I played travel, softball, volleyball, and basketball in high school as well. So there's a lot of athletics in my high school career. When I went to college, I chose to attend Central Michigan University, which is my alma mater for my undergrad. I played basketball there for 4 years, had a very successful career in Central Michigan, traveled all around. It was actually very amazing. Super best experience of my life. Playing under Sue Guevara was the best decision I've ever made. She was a tremendous coach. She now is retired and in the Hall of Fame for Central. So. Wow. She is very established as a coach. After that, I went over and played for Team U.S.A. basketball in Taiwan, where I re-injured my knee. I've had many knee problems. I've had 4 surgeries on my left knee, and now I'm having one on my right knee. When I hurt my left knee for the last time in Taiwan, I retired there. It was heartbreaking, but after that, I ended up playing softball, slow pitch, where I met Deborah's son. And I in turn became professional and played at the highest level that you could for slow pitch softball. After that, it started out great. It started out great. And then I ended up hurting my knees and having to call it quits through that. I was signed with Louisville Slugger. I was a factory hitter for Louisville Slugger and Pure Sports, and it was a tremendous experience. Both of those brands were amazing. Sponsored me through most of my career, Easton, and Wilson in the beginning. So it was a very good experience athletic wise, but at the ripe age of 30, my knees told me I needed to stop. So I ended up having to retire from all sports entirely.
And that's a tough one. So to be able to get to this level, because there's such a drive that you have. Mm-hmm. And I have experienced your athletic ability. Going to a batting cage, and mine kind of goes boop. And yours, I mean, it was pretty amazing, even in golf.
Yeah.
And you just have this innate ability. It's very similar to what our son has too, just this innate ability to do something with a ball or with a club or
anything athletically.
Yeah, which is different how I was even raised or what my ability is. So, but let's focus on what your drive is. How did you ended up loving it and the drive to do that? Because when I have watched any sort of, I've even seen pictures and there's this intensity and that drive. Can you kind of define a little bit of that with athletics?
With athletics, for me, and some may play for different reasons, but for me, I played for my team. I played for the name that was across my chest instead of the name that was on the back. I tried to represent the name, my family's name on the back as highly as I could. But, when you're playing for other people and you're playing for a team and you want a team to advance instead of just yourself, for me and my coach, she explained it a lot when we did the legacy series at Central. The tenacity and the drive that you have to play for others, the selflessness, the things to do, the little things was what meant the most for me. And I've learned that in life, it's the little things that I have to focus on for me to find ways to drive myself now after sports and during sports. It was the same thing. You wanted to be better for your coach. You wanted to be better for your team. You wanted to win for them and do what you could as best as you could, so your team could succeed and do wonderful things for the future.
And that's so applicable for any sort of business. But a lot of people miss that because there's so many solopreneurs, or else we have people in, as a management, and all of a sudden it becomes all about you and not about, the whole team together,
right.
And how important that is. And that's what you really learn in team sports.
And a lot of student athletes that leave the sport, they get lost in that. So they lose that team atmosphere and they lose the drive to, when we're practicing, when we're doing weightlifting, when we're watching film, when we're going to do all these team things, conditioning, practicing for 3 hours at a time together, spending your entire day together, you're focused on that team and you're working for a goal that you set as your team. And then after that, we don't have that team atmosphere anymore.
Right.
So student athletes, after they retire, they just don't, some of us, I wouldn't speak for all, but most of us, we just get lost. We're like, what do we do now? Who are we working for? Especially for me, it's like, I love to work for myself, but I was so trained to be a part of a team, to work a part of the team. So having that drive to make others better. Who am I going to make better now?
Right.
Who am I working for now? I don't have a coach anymore. I don't have teammates to work for anymore. So it was one of those things that I had to rewire my brain to try to find a team oriented atmosphere for myself.
And that was kind of where I was leading to our next little point, was the structure. Because when you're talking about the team, you're also talking about structure.
Yep.
I mean, your team would tell you when to show up, what to do. You had a box.
Yeah. So my window, I would wake up because, some people are fortunate with beautiful knees and that's great for them. But for others, we have to go to therapy in the morning. We have to go to rehab in the morning. So when you have a 6 o'clock practice, you have to wake up at 5 and be to the weight room by 5:15. And then you have to get your knee warmed up. You have to get taped. You have to get braced up. You have to go through a rehab thing to get your knee warm up. Then you have a 3-hour practice. And then after this 3-hour practice, you have right after for me, we'd have hour lifting. And then after that, we would have a half hour to 45 minutes conditioning. And then and this was all scheduled for us. So, and then after that, we'd have our entire day of classes. And then with an entire day of classes after that, we would have what's called study hall or study table. So we would go to the study table and we'd have to log so many hours during the week. So you could be there 7 o'clock at night, stay there till 10. And then after 10, your day's done.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to have a social life, you're am I studying? Am I sleeping? Am I eating? We have to, as a student athlete, we have all these things. We're gifted with so many things, but at the same time, we like our time frame.
Yeah.
But it's all scheduled out. Like we don't have to think essentially.
Right. Right. Really interesting that way. How structured that is. And also how that will affect a lot of your relationships, because your whole identity is as an athlete, as this professional athlete. And now all of a sudden, you've got different relationships, and you talked about some of those relationships too, and what you had and the good ones, and maybe you had some others that weren't with your playing with your team.
So especially now, like my identity, my entire life was to be an athlete.
Right.
And I didn't know how to address myself as anything but. I was a basketball player or I was a softball player. That's who Taylor Alyn Johnson was.
Right.
And when I was done with basketball, when I was done with softball, it's like you're sitting there and you're just like, well, who am I now? Like I'm not Taylor Johnson, the basketball player. I'm not Taylor Johnson, the softball player. I had to find a different love that gave me the same, what we talked about, the same drive, the same team oriented feel, the same thing. And now I am actually working in special education, and I'm going for my master's at Liberty University for general curriculum special ed. And I will be working with special needs individuals, and it is the best thing. I also do ABA therapy, applied behavioral analysis. So I work with severely autistic nonverbal children, and that we have to be a team to work with children in schools. We have to be able to work together, because trying to do that alone without aides, without paras, without your other co-teachers, it's almost impossible. And especially how the education is today, you have to be a team. And that's where I found my love. And other people might find work for their family as a team. Other people might, there are different loves that you have to find. But as a student athlete, former student athlete, people have to try to find that different love,
right?
And try to get that same team atmosphere back. Fortunately, I found it.
Yeah.
Now there are other student athletes who haven't. I have people who have tried to maintain that grip of being that athlete because they are lost without it. So, and that's the difficulty of being a student athlete. After that, your identity is gone. You don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So, and it's a big thing that people don't talk about.
And I mean, you said some were struggling with, drugs and with all sorts of things that they're struggling in their lives because they can't adjust now to, they had that structure. They had the fame.
They did. There's being in, we're playing at Central. I was fortunate to meet so many beautiful people, and some come from horrible backgrounds. That was their out. And when they don't make it to the next level and they don't make it to being professional, they have to go back to where they came from. And some are scared. That's where the drugs and alcohol came from. That's where gambling came from. That's where, and it's horrible to know that that's what they turned back to. And then others I've seen very successful. They're doctors I know now. They found a different route. There's teachers, there's therapists, there's lawyers. I have friends from athletics all across the spectrum. It's just some needed more help mentally, emotionally, physically than they were able to get after they were done.
Right.
And that's the major part, is very saddening. It is saddening, and then some it's a blessing. It's kind of both, but it's a transitional part that people have to talk about and get help with.
And it's usually those choices that you make.
It always is a choice.
Yeah, and
always is a choice.
I mean, your mom and your dad were in athletics.
Absolutely.
And I know that, I mean, you felt probably very fortunate that you had that sort of support
yes.
behind you, and they
Mhm.
probably understood more than anybody would understand.
Absolutely. So my dad, he was an All-American baseball player at Aquinas College in Michigan. My mother, she played basketball and softball at Aquinas College as well. Unfortunately, she had knee issues where back in the 1980s, technology and wasn't that great as it is now. So she couldn't make that jump back.
Yeah.
But with the choice, we did have a choice. After, I come home, I could have stayed and just sulked at my parents' house for years. I could have, just been nothing. I could have fallen into drugs. I could have done this. And, I had the support enough and my parents raised me enough to be able to know I have the choice to better myself. I have the choice to find a way to be self-sufficient at this point. So I had to somehow find a way to alter that, to try to get the best of both worlds of what I was used to for 25 years as a team oriented. So what I had to do was I figured out, I want to be a teacher. I want to do this. I want to work with students to where I can find that team oriented and be self-sufficient and make something of myself and make that difference that we all as student athletes did when we were in college, that we did when we were professional athletes. If you have been fortunate to make it to that next level, we wanted that make a difference. We wanted to go in there and help somebody. We wanted to do something. And in education, I make that difference. For me, that's where I find where I can make that difference is in special needs individuals. So,
and that is, I mean, to be in that field, to be able to help those type of children, young adults, even growing up and with those needs. And it took you a little bit to find it.
It did. Yeah, it did. I got out, I worked at a hospital. I tried to see if I could, I'd be like, this is a great career, working in a hospital, working in administration. But it wasn't my vibe. It wasn't my vibe. It was too analytical. It was too not hands-on with people as I wanted to be, which I was so used to, especially being when you're a student athlete, when you're as a professional, you're out in the public, you're working with people, you're hanging out with people and conversing with people. When I worked at the hospital at Spectrum Health in Michigan, it wasn't. So I wasn't doing that a lot. And then I tried to do more hands-on work. So the real grunt work and working in landscaping, because, if I can't sit at a desk for 8 hours, let's go outside. Right.
Yes.
But that was still just not as
fulfilling.
Yeah. Fulfilling. And I didn't meet as many people, obviously, that either. I wasn't working with people either.
Yes.
So I was like, this is a couple years out of college, I was doing this. And then finally, my mother, she is a 10-year special ed teacher as well. So she's like, how about you get into teaching? So I started being a substitute teacher and I fell in love. I was like, this is exactly what I was meant to do.
Yeah.
So now I took that road and I'm on it.
And I thought it was neat. You were sharing that you and your mom are going to get your doctorates together.
Yeah. So next December, I actually graduate with my master's. And then after that, I'll take a year off to mentally take and then my mother and I are going to enroll in Liberty for their doctorate program. And then our goal is to walk together as mother and daughter and get our doctorate. So we'll get it in curriculum and instruction for special ed, which will be super cool.
And that kind of leads me a little bit to you are very now self-aware of, you're a very social person. You're an extrovert.
Yes. Yes. As you kind of have to be.
Yeah. Well, I've taught, and I'm not really an extrovert. I'm more of an introvert, but in the fields that you've had too, you have, that is your personality. So you're able to be who you are with that self-awareness. And then with your new priorities and your new purpose that you have, it's really driving you now to finish those goals, which I have always been, your education is not going to always make you smarter, but It shows the commitment. It shows the discipline.
And my dad always said, you know, he helped me most of my life, but my dad with, you know, because he's done it. My dad has been the student athlete. He's been the professional athlete, and he's done all this. And he always told me, he goes, Taylor, you can be an athlete. You can have the mind of an athlete, but your body one day is going to tell you no.
Yeah.
But you know what, you can always have education. You can always get smarter. You can always go back. You can always do that, where your body won't let you play basketball forever. You know, your knees will take the game away, but nobody can take education away from you.
Yeah.
So that really hit home to me, and he really brought me and motivated me to continue and get that into my head of, this is what I want to do as well. So
yeah, very similar to what my father had told my sisters and I, that no one can take away that piece of paper.
Yep.
And I think I have still hanging in my office here of my master's degree. But you know, I didn't even really want to stay in education, but it just gives you a little extra. It shows you how to research. It shows you how all of those things.
Now you're educating your granddaughters.
Yes,
and teaching your granddaughters.
And I'm doing, you know, webinars and podcasts and
helping
speaking.
all these beautiful people out here.
It really does. I mean, but it shows you how to do the research and all of that. And so I'm a big fan of lifelong learning. So there you are. You're just always learning. So
yes.
But you had something very, very recent, because when you just blew out your other knee, not totally, but enough to say, you know, now is the time.
Yeah.
So what was that feeling when you really felt like, okay, it's really all the way over? I mean, sometimes you still hang on to that little hope. Like I was thinking even yesterday, because you and our son Dave, as you're out here for the holidays, you went out and played golf. Well, you guys won. I mean, both of you, I mean, my gosh, you know, but I mean, you could play professional golf. You could just pick that up. But it's walking and it's all of those things. But you've made this sort of decision of just really now to go a different direction. How does that feel emotionally? And are you leaving a window? And, you know, I don't know how to communicate. It might change next year, you know?
For my specific situation, where others are gifted, not my knees, especially in basketball, I knew, and I was self-aware, I had to be done with basketball because I couldn't play it the way I want to play it. I couldn't play it the way I was raised to play it. And I couldn't play it the way the game's meant to play anymore, because I couldn't physically run for basketball up and down anymore. I couldn't do the jerks left and right. I couldn't do that anymore. And when I was overseas in Taiwan, you know, I was sitting in this beautiful Chinese garden and crying to myself. And I was like, Taylor, you're done. Like you can't run after you're done. Like if you know anything about me, I give everything I have. I will leave everything on the court. I will leave everything on the field. I'll jump through a brick wall, drive through a brick wall for, you know, the ball, my team, everything. I will give everything I absolutely have. And in basketball, I did. And I was self-aware to know that my knees have told me, Taylor, it's time. You have to stop. I wanted to try to force it, but with basketball, was how intense it is and how crazy it is for your body. I physically couldn't do it. So I made the decision in Taiwan to retire, and I cried with my dad at the airport. It was a very emotional time mentally for me to accept that it was over. You know, for a year and a half, I couldn't accept that I was done. I couldn't accept that basketball, that was such a focal point of my life. Everything I ever worked for was basketball, was done. There's nothing. And I can coach, which is great. I can give instruction. I can give camps, all this stuff. And it's great, but it's just not like playing.
It's not the same.
Nope.
I agree.
And then with softball, I've found that I could physically play softball.
Yeah.
I could physically do that until I played it for almost 10 years now. And at the end of 10 years, I recently just blew my right knee out. And at the end, right before it, I couldn't run. I couldn't play the field like I used to. I can hit, I mean, that's very stationary,
Yes.
but now that's how I heard it was I was twisting. So, I realized it gave me the same feeling I felt in Taiwan. It's like, you can't do this anymore, Taylor.
Yeah.
You have to. And if it wasn't for that basketball epiphany, I wouldn't have known this would be the epiphany for softball.
Right.
But I was, again, self-aware, and I realized, like, Taylor, this is done. And now being engaged to your son, I have another future I get to look forward to now, another drive to be a family, come out here for the holidays, come out here more to see my other family out here in California. If God blesses us with children, I want to be able to play with my children. I want to be able to help raise them. I don't want to be in a wheelchair. I don't want to do all that, so it's very world altering when you get to those points. But in turn, I found education after basketball, after softball. I found your son, and you try to find those things that'll give you something to work for after that. So,
and you have new purpose, and you have all of these plans ahead, and it helps to have those plans.
It does.
It really does. And focus. And
I think that's the biggest part of coming and transitioning. When you transition from an athlete to a regular everyday person, you have to find those things that keep you and give you purpose. Because in sports, you had that purpose.
Yes.
You have the purpose of being this person that they need you.
Right.
This was my purpose for this team. This was my purpose for this team.
Right.
What is my purpose outside of sports now?
Right.
And that in having, that family, school, being a teacher, working with my students, that's my purpose now.
Right.
So it's a little bit different from sports, but it works. It gives me the same feeling that sports did. So
that's really amazing, because a lot of people don't find that sort of same feeling.
Right.
And I really understand the difference with like the coaching and the performance, because there's something amazing about being in front of an audience and how you just bring all of that together than teaching a classroom or teaching teaching a lot. It's just totally different that way, though you can do it.
Yeah.
You have the ability, but it's just a different feeling emotionally and making those choices. And I've made choices as well, because I've wanted to raise our kids and not be on tour. I've got offers. I always have offers.
I'm still in awe with everything that you've done, like with Disney and everything. I'm still in awe finding all of this stuff.
Well, it's a wonderful thing to be able to use what you have, but also be able to create a life.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be away from our kids. I wanted to make sure I was around enough. I did have a very supportive husband. He did not always support my career, by the way. People think, you could just do whatever. No, I worked very, very hard, believe me. But it was those choices too, and what to do and what path to take. And you're making some of those choices now, and even foreseeing the future, because there will be times when you think, well, maybe I could do this a little again. Maybe that sort of thing. And there may be some times that you can add that back in, but not at the level at that level that you were at.
And that's probably the hardest to come to grips with. It's like, I'll be able to tell my kids, your mama used to do this.
Yeah.
But,
and they'll understand when they're adults.
Yes. And they'll understand when they're adults, because I never did I watched my dad do it.
Yeah.
So, and I looked up to my dad for everything. And he would tell me the same things I would tell my kids. Like, look at full circle.
Yeah.
So it's amazing what your life evolves into that you never thought it would.
Yeah.
So
it's those little surprises that you have along the way. And so much of this is mindset. It's the focus. It's what we decide that those choices, where we decide, we're not going to stay into that and go back to what wasn't working totally, because it's easy to slink right back into that,
Well, and the choices, it's like, especially for an athlete, it's like we always want to get better.
Yes.
We always want to improve ourselves. We always want to make sure we're doing the best that we can.
Right.
And it's those choices in life. It's like, for me, I want to do better. I want to be the best I can. So what's my route for this?
Right.
That's being more educated. That's going to school. That's getting my master's and finishing my doctorate, going to see what I can do more in the field that I am.
Right.
Now, other people may be in the medical field. Other people may be in business, those, it can all be altered to what you are. Exactly. Yes. Music, you can always get better in music. You can always, there's room for improvement in every profession that you do.
Really
and a lot of people, some get stagnant with that. And it's one of those things you have to understand. No matter what you do, you can always be better.
Right.
And that's the big part of what sports has done for me after. Is that it's taught me I can always be better. So
those principles that you can put it right along what you're doing now.
It's a great feeling though that I was fortunate enough to learn that. Some aren't, and it's hard to watch, and you try to understand like how don't you get that? Like you can be better, and they have what's called stuck brain.
Yeah, it's stuck brain. Stuck brain.
Yes, they have stuck brain, and it's just right there, and they don't know what to do for the next step.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, you just those choices and where you're going, and you've decided just you're not going to be stuck, and so much that you can do also with your education. I mean, what a gift that you can do a lot of this online. It's there's really no excuse now for not getting even some more education. And
you have so much help. You have student loans now. You have different grants you can have. If you're starting, say you only have a high school degree, there's so many community colleges that are welcoming just walk-ins now and saying, if you have a high school diploma, even if you do have the worst grades ever, because I've heard that as well, you can take a class and with a grant, if you don't have money, and get to a GPA to where you do get accepted. So nowadays there are no excuses. It's just the motivation.
It really is. And I think some of your best education is at some of your junior colleges. You've got great teachers that don't want to fight the politics. In fact, I went back to that when I was teaching at a university. I just, it's a great place to be, so that you can do that. So, well, if we were to leave everyone with just one or two small little nuggets, what would those be as I kind of close up this interview?
I guess if whoever is a student athlete out there transitioning, or whether you did have a very extensive structured life and now it's not anymore, find that purpose, and it's out there. Don't stop trying to find it. Just, if you got to keep trying, don't have stuck brain and say this is as good as it's going to get. Because it's not. You can do better. You can work to have what you want. You can make self-improvement in any aspect that you want. You just have to keep going, and just don't stop. You can't stop.
That's a wonderful word of advice, especially as we're recording this as we're facing a new year, and this will be early in the year. And
this is the new year, new me time.
So great words of advice. And I want to remind everyone to make sure that you get our newsletter, and that you sign up for that, goalsforyourlife.com. I'm saying it slowly because my husband says, slow down. goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter, that you get our newsletters. They come every week, and then you get notified of the extra podcasts too. So it's an added plus, and with articles and with tons of free things. Also, you can reach me on my other websites, of course, Deborah Johnson Speaker, because I do some speaking. The music everyone loves, DJ Works music, and I'm always putting out some of the new music, and you get those in the newsletter too, because those are a lot of fun, lots and lots of videos. So thank you so much for joining me today, Taylor. This was a pleasure, and I'm so glad we got to do this live here.
Oh, it's in California, which is new for me. It's great.
Yes. So thank you all for joining us, and I'll look forward to being with you again next time. And bye for now. Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. We'd love it if you'd share and follow us to not miss a single show, and even write a review.
You can also find all of our articles, products, and links at womenathalftime.com.